From the port cities of New England to the sandy shores of California, the faithful in America's two political parties are putting the final touches on their party nominees. People in 15 states and one territory are voting. Another state has already decided. That's in Iowa, where Democrats have already announced President Biden has won their mail-in caucuses. At this moment, polls have closed in two states, Virginia and Vermont. Just a half an hour from now, polls will close in North Carolina. For the Republicans, tonight is not expected to be an underdog story. Former President Donald Trump remains the clear frontrunner. He has defeated former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley in all but one of the nominating contests thus far. On the Democratic side, President Biden is widely expected to sweep tonight's contests. He has no major challengers. CBS News polling finds that for Republican voters, the economy is the #1 issue driving their vote choice, followed closely by the border and crime. For Democratic voters, their top two issues are the state of American democracy and the economy. We have a panel for this moment, and let me read the roster. Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett and Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes have switched places with me, and they are now in New York City. Senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is at the White House, and Chief Election and Campaign correspondent Robert Costa is here in Washington. I'm delighted to be with all of you. Major, start with you. Set the stage. If the expectations of tonight are kind of people think they know what they're going to be, what is tonight really about?
Well, as you indicated in the open, John, this is not a cliffhanger. There will be no trapdoor surprise come 11 o'clock tonight, something unexpected. Oh, my gosh, this happened and we never saw this coming. We know what's going to happen tonight. It will be a blanket victory for President Biden and a blanket victory in all likelihood for former President Trump, as both prepare to be well positioned to become the nominees of their party and set up a 2020 rematch. One of the underlying subplots, though, is what does unity look like? We heard in that soundbite from former President Trump, the Republican Party has never been so unified from his perspective. But it may be unified from his perspective, but how large is it? If Nikki Haley in several states tonight, if losing, still clocks in at 30, 35%, that means the Republican Party is not, by definition, unified or unified enough to propel former President Trump to a general election victory. If former President Trump loses 20%, 10%, even 15% of decided Republican voters in the general election, have a very hard time beating President Biden, no matter what the polls currently say. On the other side, what does unity look like for President Biden? Is the Democratic coalition always and historically fractious, pulling apart in ways that the Biden campaign cannot glue back together in time for the convention in August and the general election come November? Some of the questions about that unity and cohesion in the Democratic Party might get some more insight tonight in some of the primary results.
And Nancy, let me ask you about that gluing together function. How do the Biden folks with their bottles of Elmer's glue over there look at tonight and the task they have before them coming out of tonight's results?
Well, on one hand, they'll be able to claim it's a great night no matter what, right? They'll be able to announce that he swept to victory in all of these states. He is running essentially unopposed. But that's a blessing and a curse in some ways. On one hand, yes, he doesn't have any major challengers hitting him from the left. On the other hand, it makes it difficult to rally enthusiasm, rally energy on the Democratic side because there just isn't much of a race. How do you encourage a Democratic voter to get out and vote for you in a primary when you're basically not running against anyone else? So they've got to look towards the general election and find ways to convey to their voters that the stakes are real, even if the general election is still months and months away, and that they need to start getting engaged. They need to start getting active now because we know who the Republican nominee likely will be, and this is going to be a rematch from 2020.
And Ed, are there any concerns tonight from the Biden camp, the way there were in Michigan from last week? Any efforts or where low turnout might signal more of that weakness that Nancy talked about?
Well, they had high turnout overall in Michigan last week, and they were actually quite intrigued by that and impressed by it because it signals strong support for the president, even though 13% of that vote went uncommitted in part to protest his stance on the war. The only place that could really be a factor tonight is in Minnesota, another state that has that option but isn't expected to see as big a turnout. In my conversations so far with Biden campaign officials tonight, they're looking at our exit polling already that shows in North Carolina, Virginia, and California, 3 of the states where we have the exit polling, but 3 states they care about for various reasons. They notice big chunks of those who showed up today to vote for Nikki Haley say they will not support the Republican nominee if that Republican nominee is Donald Trump. In other words, they feel that's potential growth space for them in those states, North Carolina especially, because that's the one that the Biden campaign would like to turn into a battleground state. It's encouraging for them in places like Virginia and California, where there will be competitive congressional and Senate races and other opportunities for Democrats down the ballot, should they be able to draw out Democratic and independent votes for them. They'll be watching the turnout numbers in those states and others tonight and looking for any other signs of depressed enthusiasm. But they would also point out, turnout has been healthy in Democratic primaries so far, maybe a little higher than some had expected.
Bob, what does Nikki Haley's candidacy tell us about the Republican Party right now, and what are her choices at the end of tonight, do you think?
Nikki Haley's campaign might be ending in the next couple of days if she doesn't have a surprise night tonight and really start to put together some wins. But the end of her campaign does not necessarily mean it's the end of her coalition or a movement of traditional Republicans either to sit home or maybe even vote for President Joe Biden. I've been talking to sources in Philadelphia, in the Pennsylvania area. You talk to people there, Biden supporters, and they say what happens tonight in Northern Virginia, what happens tonight in the suburbs outside of Boston, this could be an indicator of what's going to be outside of Philadelphia in those collar counties, how it's going to be in the suburbs of Detroit, in swing states like Michigan moving forward. Tonight's important to see, do those Haley voters come out in droves, even if they're not winning delegates for her in these winner-take-all states? Could they be a warning sign for the Trump campaign? And in fact, we're already seeing some early numbers in the CBS exit polling that shows 78% of Haley supporters in North Carolina are not willing to support the Republican nominee. If that's the biggest indicator of a warning sign I've ever seen in exit polling today.
And then quickly jumping on top of that, over the weekend, former President Trump said, we don't want anybody from the Romney wing, only MAGA voters. Well, in North Carolina and Virginia, over 50% of the Republican voters said they weren't from MAGA. Doesn't he need somebody outside of MAGA if he's going to win in a general election?
You're not seeing a pivot yet from the Trump campaign to try to win over those Haley supporters. There's a belief that they'll ultimately come home to Trump. But at the same time, you have the Biden campaign putting such an emphasis on democracy and January 6th. That's an overture to those voters.
Major, is there a special window that opens after tonight? In other words, things will go into a quiet period till the conventions. Is there a political window that opens once it becomes pretty clear who I mean, it already has, but, you know, once it gets locked in and who, is there a special window that opens tonight?
Yes, there is. And it's not going to be quiet between now and the conventions, John. It won't be quiet on the ground, and it won't be quiet on the airwaves. The Biden campaign has already made it clear to me and Nancy and others that they're going to start using the vast resources they have to begin advertising, whether it's digital or on television, to get their message out. And both campaigns know who voted in 2020. We had record presidential election turnout in 2020. And there's all sorts of micro-targeting information that both campaigns have. And there's going to be voter outreach that will be starting this month and continuing unabated until November. That voter contact will be repetitive, and it could be like so much voter contact that by the end of this campaign, people who are reaching out for the Trump or Biden campaigns are taking these folks out to dinner or something. I mean, it's going to be that kind of direct, that kind of repetitive, that kind of familiar, because they have all this time to get to know who those voters are that they can lock in and the potential ones they're trying to bring across.
Nancy and Ed, very quickly, because they're going to kill me for taking this time up, but there's a State of the Union coming up. How is the president planning to use that, and can he really?
He's going to use it as an opportunity to remind voters of his record and what he's done in the past few years. Polls show, even our own CBS News polling shows, that there are a lot of voters out there who still don't quite know what he's done. And so he's got this big platform all to himself on Thursday night to try to do that.
Ed, final
to avoid
word
murdering
quickly
you,
from
John. Yes, to avoid murdering you, John. We don't want that to happen. Two things happened today here at the White House that signal what's going to be in that speech. One, he had a focus on combating so-called junk fees across corporate America, corporate greed, in order to bring prices down and address the chronic concerns about inflation. The other, he kept pushing Israel and Hamas to get to a ceasefire deal, understanding his base wants him to do that, and increasingly most Americans do as well. Expect that that will be a big part of the speech as well on Thursday.
Thanks to all of you. I'd name you, but the viewers know who you are, and we're rushed. Thanks, gang. CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, is joining us from our data desk in New York. Anthony, hello. Busy, fast night. We're getting some results from Virginia. What do we know?
We are indeed. John, let me show you this. This is the early counted vote. There's just a smattering of votes in from a couple of places around. You know, if I show you the way our exit polls have looked at this race, just so we can be totally transparent about what we do here at the data desk, I want to show you this. This is our current estimate for each candidate from the exit poll, 58 to 39 in favor of Trump. That's why we rate it right now as lean Trump as we await some votes coming in. But what happens, John, is I put these bars here between a high water mark for Trump, which we think is actually as high as 68, all the way down to 48. And then this is the bar around the uncertainty right now of Nikki Haley's estimate. And I just want to show folks that because it's this overlap right in here that means this is a lean race and not a projection yet. The idea that there is still some overlap between the candidates' estimates, at least out of the exit poll. As more vote comes in, we may see these bars start to separate, and then maybe we get a projection here in Virginia, but that's where we are right now, John.
And what other contests are you keeping an eye on, Anthony?
Well, we're going to look tonight. We've got Vermont has closed. We are waiting for data in that. And then North Carolina is the next one. It comes up 7:30 Eastern is when that's going to close. There's a couple of things I'm watching out of that. And I'll take you over here really quickly to the exit polls, because this is going to be a theme through the night. This is the composition of the electorate. In this case, it's in Virginia. Yes, it's 60% Republican, but there were a lot of independents, self-identified, and even a lot of self-identified Democrats who came into this race. What does that do? Well, it may boost Nikki Haley's vote because she's gotten so strong support from both of those groups. Maybe they're trying to send a protest against Donald Trump. Maybe they're going where the action is. They feel this is a competitive primary. But that's key to watch because Donald Trump's going to argue he's got the bulk of Republicans, and in fact he does. But Nikki Haley's going to argue, well, she wins these kind of voters, which is why she actually does better in national matchups against Joe Biden, John.
And so just on that very point, before I let you go, Anthony, is it important then to know when we hear figures like 78% of Haley voters aren't going to vote for Trump, is it important then to look inside those numbers and go, wait a minute, how many of those people who won't vote for Trump are either Democrats or independents and not really Republican voters? Is that important information to know?
It's extremely important, and I'm glad you said it, because the fact is that for most of these Republicans, when you look at in the national polling, they generally go back over to Trump when you ask them about a Trump-Biden matchup. And historically, that's what's happened. Even in 2016, when some Republicans said they were dissatisfied with Trump as the nominee then, what happened back in November? It took a while, but they ultimately moved to Donald Trump. So that's one thing that we could be watching here. And yes, if the composition of these primaries, even though a lot of people say they won't necessarily support the Republican nominee, as you see here, if they're voting for Nikki Haley. Even though they say that, the months are long and there's a big campaign and there's going to be a lot of enticement for them to come back home, John.
And Anthony, before I let you go, since President Biden has no actual real challenger, is it possible at this hour to give us a ruling on Virginia or on Vermont?
Well, Virginia, yes. Virginia, we can say that Joe Biden, and I'll show you that right here. I'll give you the Democratic race. That's a check mark. So we put that in for Joe Biden. He's won Virginia right there. Vermont, not yet. We're still waiting for data. Look, we're not expecting a lot of surprises out of these races for Joe Biden. Some folks are going to watch where states have the ability to vote for uncommitted. They're going to watch that. But then it's a lot of political spin. What does the percent uncommitted mean? Is 10% bad for him? Is 15% bad for him? That's one where you get a little bit more up for interpretation than anything else, John.
And it looks like another tough night for Dean Phillips there, coming in, at least it looks at the moment, below Marianne Williamson, who's dropped out of the race. But we'll check back into that later. Anthony Salvanto, we'll see you later tonight. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.